value. I was advised by my English friend it looks better, but exactly the same content is carried here. And I suppose that the topic in itself is understandable. The question is what I want to say today. First of all, we are participating in philosophical debate, and the concept is purely sociological. So I have to justify why I'm telling about philosophical stuff, sociological stuff, why you should talk about philosophical matters. Having this, I hope that after persuading you that it is worth it to talk about it, I will try to introduce the essence of the concept of social structure, which in its nature is quite complicated. There is like umbrella, this nominal name of this concept, but in fact there is many different approaches. Some of them I will introduce you just to easily to pick up what is the essence of this concept. Having definition and viewing the scope, the deepness of the conceptualization, we will go to the areas of application, and they are selected just only to exemplify how this concept is useful in research. And later I will go to African environment because, as you will see at the end, and I can prove it, within African sociological literature and generally in social sciences literature, this concept is not too much embedded. It is rather part of descriptions and basically speaking doesn't appear at the side of this explanative part of the theory. So, starting from justification, you see the question why we are talking about such issue as social structure during philosophical debate. And for that, I have two reasons. First of all, we need to be aware about this problem that when we are transferring certain philosophical ideas, certain conceptualizations, certain part of doctrines from the past to contemporaneity, we need to be aware that there is a big danger that we will make a mistake thinking in our categories and retrospectively implying the same categories to the past. And because of it, there is needed the appropriate contextualization. Sorry, I started from the point which is number 2, now I will go to point number 1. And second issue is this basic difference in between the past and modernity could be reflected in complexity of life, of social life. And because of this complexity, if as a philosophers we would try to make some explanations, we need to use this expanded way of perceiving reality, describing, explaining, and so on. Because in this way, this philosophical insight could be appropriately embedded within these realities which we are going to explain. So just concluding these two reasons, that complexity of modern world could be explained by philosophy, but philosophy could be appropriately applied to and could be in line with this complexity. So because of it, we can use the help of social sciences, which are providing us different aspects, within different aspects they are providing appropriate knowledge which could be enlightening for us when we try to employ the content of philosophical reasoning to make certain type of explanations. And if we can expound our philosophical explanations the concept of social structure really can be useful tool for that. Why? Because it helps us to see the complexity of modern life. It was adopted to many disciplines across social sciences and humanities, and it is universally recognized as useful tool, and if we are going to literature, we can observe certain type of easiness in its usage. So frequently it is reappearing at the part of larger descriptions, or it is appearing at the site of explanations where very willingly some scientists, researchers are making reference to particular aspect of this type of theorization, and relying on it, they try to develop their own explanations, their own conclusions. However, there is a problem. Despite of this universality and this easiness in using the concept, there is a big mess which is relying in lack of common acceptance, so the essence of the concept. And here I'm introducing you just a few examples how the concept was understood. Sorry, but it will be at the next stage. Here it is extra remark, the reflection concerning my personal motivation of introducing this concept, because one of our debates we were trying to make certain type of distinctions in between traditional and modern societies in the context of African issues. And I got the reflection after this that if we started to sort out things in the categories of social structure, maybe it would be easier to find a common way, not a common way, but to find at the end the common view of discussed subject. And also the issue is that the concept of social structure is a part of multidisciplinary reflection, and this type of reflection, I suppose, we are going to introduce during the first International Jordan Conference, which we are now preparing. It's going to take place in May. So these issues of identity also should be considered as the matter where the conceptualization of social structure could be really helpful. Going to the explanations of the essence of the concept. So mentioned, as I already mentioned, about the essence of the concept, and here you can say that randomly chosen examples, because you can observe that many researchers, when they are conducting their own explanations, they define the concept of social structure on their own way. So maybe it is not the selection is not giving justice to the reality, so because of it I say that it is random. And first, anything that makes people to do something despite they do not want to do it. So the social structure is seen as a type of constraint, isn't it? Something which doesn't allow us to express who we are and how we want to organize the reality of our life, but something which is around us and is determining our choices, is determining our decisions, our way of participation. Intuitive understanding of the sets seemingly keeping people grouped. So it is around certain gatherings of people, certain type of unseen borders which are making them differentiated. On the pattern of structures formed by organs and bones of human body, society is seen in analogy as a structure. So here it is quite clear, sounds familiar with early functionalism. Agglomerates of social statuses and their action counterpart. And it means that people who are in place in particular arrangements, outlets, where they are surrounded by other people, all of them is embedded within certain position, in place, occupying certain position, and in consequence of it, have certain type of rights and obligations. So this set of rights and obligations, there is a social role which is played by a particular person. And we will try to use this to extend, to explain this last insight, which is telling about regularities of interaction. And here this insight was criticized in the history because it was introduced by Tadeusz Jarosz, and he was accused that at certain moment of making understand it as a very useful part of our descriptions of social realities which we are making, and in that way we are getting deeper insight into arrangements which are formed in particular communities, societies, organizations, institutions, and so on. And out of it, our description is becoming much more expanded, so it will be helpful for making further explanations. However, when we are changing from this basic level, our perspective, and we are going up to the level of TZ1, where we are talking about theories, and at this level, social structure is seen as inherent part of formal sociology, which is dealing with society seen as a system, and within the system you have different parts which are interacting among each other. And out of these attempts, it was developed a range of theories which are trying to introduce us, or to get insight into such aspects of social life as conflict, authority, hierarchy, but disconnected from the current context. So we can, if we have certain normative theory of conflict, and we can perceive that or we can state that certain conflict just already started. So using this theory, we can perceive the future events, more or less, isn't it? If we are applying, of course, and contextualizing this theory appropriately to particular elements of reality. So within this level of T1, we have a ranges of different approaches, different theories, which are really helpful in understanding such aspects of human life, like cooperating and competing. And at the level of T2, where we are thinking about ideas underpinning certain contexts, about assumptions, axioms of particular theories. This is as old as sociology conflict in between theorists about this issue. What really should determine us why we are making research. So we should believe that social structure is appropriate way of explaining, getting insight into society. So it means that if we are grouped within society, this earlier introduced by me determination, structural determination, is really making us helpless. And for example, as it was said within the theory of functionalism, the socialization doesn't matter your emotions, doesn't matter your ideas, doesn't matter your purposes. if you will go through the process of socialization, at the end of the day, you will be conformed to the values of your society. You will become one of them, and doesn't matter your starting point desires. So this is a strong belief that social structure prevails. But during the course of the history of our subject emerged the ideas which were contradicting the structural determination, and they are associated with theorization of social action. And at this column, we have some examples of theorizing. So this theorizing, which is based on belief that social structure prevails, you have such examples of theory. This is something more than simple than theory. The families of theories, or this paradigmatic approaches how to develop science. And here we have, for example, functionalism or critical theory. So the functionalists would say that society is keeping balance due to cooperation between people, and critical theory is quite opposite, due to unending conflicts. But still, the frame for society is the most important. So all of these actions are framed within this pattern of or cooperation or competing. However, at the another side of this theorizing in categories of social action, for example, the most striking symbolic interactionism, here this frame doesn't exist. The society is seen like something continuously developing, and is developing on such a way that around particular individuals unceasingly are expounding different types of these interactional orders. So this is much more fluid, this is much more dynamic, and these orders could be reshaped by somebody's wishes, by somebody's intelligence, creativeness, and so on, because while interacting, our input changes the content of interaction, and out of it, the whole environment, if we will be consequently acting in a particular way, will be changed. So in that way, people, by conscious actions, they can really change these larger normative arrangements which are taking a form of, for example, organizations or institutions. There is a famous theory of Anthony Giddens of structuration, which is trying to build a bridge in between social structuralists and social actionists, but I would say that even though I like this theory, but probably not everyone would say the same, so it is somewhere in the half successful. The question is that still this is not clearly resolved this problem. What prevails, the structures or the people who are consciously acting in order to introduce certain changes? Now just cast your eye for a while on the scope of our concept. So it might be this theorizing in categories of social structure might refer to microstructures. Just simplifying it, we could say that at above we have these big institutions. At the bottom we have just these elementary, basic elements of particular arrangements. So at the end of the day, from sociological point of view, it will be an individual, isn't it? You cannot divide individual. Somewhere in the middle, you will have such basic institutions like local community and family. And of course, at this, if we are looking from this point of view, of course, certain structural approaches, more structural approaches, they will rather refer to these macro structures. And interactionists, they will operate rather at the level of micro structures. Areas of application. So social anthropology, I suppose that at certain stages of theorizing, even social anthropologists, they were one step ahead of sociologists. Doesn't matter, these disciplines are very closely related. And the matter of interest here, for example, systems of kinship, systems of relationships and ties, forming primary or secondary social groupings. Within political science, science about politics, we have the interest was changing together with the history, starting from this institutional approaches. The polycom systems were at the focus of politologists, but also legitimacy of authority, functioning of public administration. I suppose that now the accent is going to this last part of this sentence. Science about communication and media. Here, the concept of social structure can be useful in exploring such phenomena as typical channels of communication, networks of communication, non-formal social gatherings or formal, doesn't matter, but this area. And economics, a little bit of similar as politics, the question of how administrative or industrial organizations are working. It might be very useful, this insight, which is introduced by reference, direct reference, or by employment of the conceptualization of social structure. And now, after this junction, let us go to our African realities, and I want to introduce something which is my personal experience. Do you see this jacket? And it reminds me the traditional African shirt, which I was requested by my friend to go to the town, to buy a kitenge, to find the tailor who was making them at the corner of the street, and to arrange such a kitenge vest for our friend who is living in Italy. And of course, I had prepared the pattern of this vest together with all of this, you see these lengths, which are given by me piece of paper. It was given the appropriate length, so the centimeters. So it was whole arrangement was just to follow it and to make the ready-made jacket. And you know what happened? I was absolutely amazed. Even I experienced a cultural shock, because the tailor, looking at this paper, was wondering what does it mean, and he took me to his place of employment. He took a centimeter, and looking on particular lengths, he was extending centimeter on me and was asking, it is about this, it is about that, it is about that. And maybe 2 times at the beginning he made a mistake, but later he was correctly measuring me and checking about the length. And at this time I wanted to wonder whether this product will fit really the body of my friend. And really, up to the end, I was not sure, because after measuring me, the man made just, 2 minutes reflection about it. He was not talking anything, just thinking, you know. And so what does it mean? The scale given by me was not so useful for